very much. I'm very happy to be here today to introduce to you two famous Lakelanders who probably don't need introduction, but the first is David Bunch, a North Carolina native and graduate of Florida Southern College who has lived in Lakeland since 1959. He's been a commercial and industrial real estate broker since '65 with Hogger Bunch. He's developed several industrial parks and worked with several hundred businesses to secure buildings and sites. He is past president of the Lakeland Association of Realtors, Salvation Army, YMCA, and Polk Museum of Art, and he and Jean are active community volunteers. For the last 2 years, he and Bill Tinsley have been working to develop Bonnet Springs Park. Bill is a graduate of the University of South Florida with a BS in Physical Education, Health, and Recreation. Following his military service, Bill came to work for the city in 1971. Starting at entry-level positions, Bill became the city's third Park and Recs Director in 1993. His 45-year career has provided incredible opportunities to be a part of the development of Central Florida's finest parks and recreation, and the list is impressive. Hollis Gardens, Common Ground Park, Bonnet Family Park, Lake Mirror Park, Peterson, Kelly, and Simpson Parks, and the community centers are a few of the quality of life projects Bill has had the opportunity to be involved in. After his first retirement, Bill became liaison to the Detroit Tigers and Resource Development Manager, City of Lakeland, for 3 years. He had the opportunity to develop the Detroit Tiger contract, which will ensure that they will remain in Lakeland for 100 years. Bill also led the design of the major and minor league facilities at Tigertown and Joker Marshall Stadium, which provide the finest facilities in the state of Florida. Currently, Bill is serving as president of Windsong Park, a 501c3 private organization that's enabling the vision of privately funded public park for downtown Lakeland on the former CSX site. He and his managing partner, David Bunch, are spearheading this project, and I am very excited to introduce both of them because this is going to be an incredible thing for the city of Lakeland.
Well, thank you. Bill and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and visit with you today. And I have seen a lot of friends I haven't seen in a long time. I really feel like it's home. I bring you greetings from the other great club in Lakeland, Kiwanis. And I mean that sincerely. It is a great club, as are you. I understand this is your 100th year in business in Lakeland. 101st? Go airborne. We are only 98 years old, but we have been tracking along with you for 98 years in Lakeland, and Lakeland's a better town for it. And during that time, both of us have had to reinvent ourselves and look to relevance for the town we're in, and that's no different than today, is that we are all looking for how do we make sure these clubs last another 100 years. And it's never been, I think, more difficult than it is right now to do that. So I was thrilled and am thrilled to hear that you're considering, or would consider, supporting Bonnet Springs Park. When you're a 100-year-old club, as we both are, you're clubs for the ages. And we're building a park for the ages. In other words, this is going to be here for as long as we can foresee out, and hopefully you will be too. So it's great that you're considering being a part of this effort. It won't happen without help like you. It's big, it's difficult, it's expensive. It's a new paradigm where private sector is building a park for the public. That doesn't happen often. We hope we're probably going to see more of it. We don't think we would have this part coming were it not for this movement for the private sector, because there's not $100 million lying around in the city budget. Is there, Bill? No. So anyway, we're very happy to be able to do this. Bill and I, just so you know, together have accumulated 100 years in the saddle in Lakeland, and so we're very happy to wind up our being doing this. There couldn't be anything more pleasant to us and rewarding and honoring to be doing this. So we appreciate the opportunity. Who is doing it? Windsong Park, you heard the name. Bill's president of Windsong Park. It's a nonprofit 501c3 corporation with a board of directors and an advisory committee that has taken on this task. They have a subsidiary, Roundhouse Holdings, and Lakewire Development that own the real estate that we're dealing with. That was formed about 2 years ago for the purpose of developing this park. What is it? We're talking a major park here, folks. We're talking world-class great park. Lakeland has a great park system, thanks to Bill and his predecessors. This is the great park among great parks. So that's what we're going to see here. You've got a brochure on your table, and that's what we're going to build. What you're looking at there is the park. It's 180 acres, beautiful property right within 10-minute walk of downtown Lakeland. Unbelievable opportunity. It's set there as for 100 years as a rail yard, the largest in Florida, drawing 600 people. The city grew up around it, and it's sitting vacant now for 40 years. During which time, both Bill and I have coveted that piece of property. I can't tell you the history, and I have went into a major development joint venture with CSX in the mid-'80s to develop an office park on that property. And I don't celebrate my failures often, but that one I do. Because if that had gone through and succeeded, we wouldn't have this park coming today. So I'm very happy that that one didn't fly. Some of them have. So anyway, that's a little bit about how we got here, what's happened. 2.5 years ago, both Bill and I had the same feeling that we better do something. We've got to capture this piece of property or we're going to lose it. And he'll tell you in a minute maybe how close we came with a recent occurrence happening. But we just felt like that the city's building 100 million-foot warehouses all over the place. Here sits 100 acres of table-level zoned industrial land with rail right off I-4. And the sense was we better do something about this. We've been thinking about it. Both of us have tried to develop it here for parks, me for business. And so we went to see Barney and Carol and said, listen, this town's going to be 1 million people in the next 50 or 60 years. And this piece of property is like the properties that I showed them, or we showed them cities all over the country that had these enormous masses of people in the middle of a major park, New York, San Diego, Vancouver, every great city. You look and you see this great park in the middle. And we said, when do you do this? Do you wait until all the people are there, then you try to get it? This is our green area, right in the middle of the city. It's beautiful. It's magnificent, as a matter of fact. So we said to them, help us enable this. Help us capture this piece of property, and we will master plan it. We'll clean it. It's contaminated. It's the dirtiest properties in Lakeland. We just got lucky, the dirtiest properties in the dirtiest lake. So all of this is going to be cleaned up, remediated, and park built on it. This is the stuff of life. This is what you want to do. This is why grants, this is why things and organizations are created, is to make things like this happen. So we went to them and just said, will you help us enable this? Acquire these properties, clean them up, and clean up we did. 37 tons of garbage off that property, 26,000 tons of concrete off of Florida tile. That was a major cleanup job. And now we're involved in remediation. Starting next month, we start the remediation. And then after that, construction. So they saw it immediately, as they would. And so that's what's happened. We have captured this property. Everything I just told you has happened, is happening. And Bill is going to tell you what's going to come. I thought you might like to know a little bit about how it got here, what it's been doing. And we're very fortunate to have Bill Tinsley on this team. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how to do it. I'm delighted to be working with him and the whole team. So I give you, who recently celebrated his 50th wedding anniversary, by the way, Bill Tinsley.
The good news is, everybody that's been to the park, raise your hand. Look at that. It's incredible. That's what Rotary is. It's not just a club, it's our community. We're so thrilled to be here and appreciate Alice and Joel giving us this opportunity. The good news for me is, and for you, this bright light on my bald head, I want you to look at the screen, not me, because I want to take you on a journey. I want to take you on a journey to the park to try to get you as excited as we are about what's going on. David talked to you about how we got started. The why is the real thing that I want you to leave with here today. We're sitting with the northwest quadrant of the city of Lakeland, which we understand a whole lot better than we did 2.5 years ago, being invested in that community. How isolated it is from downtown, how unconnected it is, how this piece of property, how Mother Nature, how the industrial age and so forth has abused and continues to abuse this piece of property. Lake Bonnet, our dirtiest of the 17 city lakes, doesn't have a prayer because it's 600 acres, unfiltered water going at 30 miles an hour down a chute as it falls 50 feet to the elevation to the lake. It's been going on for 80 years, and it'll go on for another 80 without interdiction. Or the fact that the recovery of the property, making it sustainable for the future, is a huge piece of our vision for the park. The Lakeland Rail Yard operated, it's what an incredible piece of our history. The Lakeland Rail Yard in 1926 had 600 employees. It was the largest employer. It was also the largest repair yard in the whole state of Florida. If you look at our history and you recognize what was going on in 28, 29 as Lake Mirror Promenade was involved, Lakeland was changing, it was growing, it had a vision. The core business in Lakeland was this rail yard. All of the housing that's in the Northwest community immediate area, the majority of that housing was built to support those 600 rail workers. There were no telephones then. You had to live within a couple of miles of your workplace to have that position. But the damage that it did to the property, the condition it left it in, and it sat there fallow for this whole period of time is part of our mission, is to return it to its natural setting. There's a view, an aerial view at 140 feet from the corner of our park looking back toward Lakeland. What you're actually looking across is the old Florida tile site. As David indicated earlier, early in the process as we're acquiring the property from CSX, we ended up also acquiring the old former Florida tile site. So we now own the two dirtiest pieces of Lakeland soil, with very much the same goal. We have a shared vision with the city of Lakeland, who's cooperating with us and consolidating the site for this to be the #1 redevelopment site in Lakeland. We hired a firm out of Orlando to create this concept for a heavy, intense use with downtown living, to be a connector to the park to downtown, more importantly, to connect Northwest Lakeland to downtown. With a heavy, intense multi-use opportunity as we really break down and look at these 2 7-story residential units. It's hard to go out there and be on that site and not have people want to get in. How do you reserve one of those locations? Because this is going to be the future place to live. Our motivation for the park is that we recognize that densities in Lakeland are going to grow with our geography, with our situation sitting here poised between 2 large cities. Our population is going to explode. Very conservatively, 1 million people. We don't have a park system to support 1 million people in the same manner that the great park that we walked in this weekend in New York supports an incredible city. That city would be an awful place to live without that. Parks have so much to give you in terms of quality of life and opportunity. Our process, we hired a company out of Austin. We interviewed, we're trying to build a world-class park. We went for the world-class design team. We think we chose the best in the country with Sasaki. We started with 2 public meetings to gather input from the community. This is a whole new paradigm for development in Lakeland, to have a private collection of the community build a public park in its entirety and for public use. And that goal takes some explaining, but it was very quick coming back to us from the community that we have other areas that are developing athletic fields for kids. We want arts, we want culture, we want restoration of the natural elements. We want the opportunity to have connectivity, exercise programs. We want it to be inclusive of all age groups. We heard those same messages over and over from the public. We had over 400 inputs in these two meetings as we had moved forward. And the result was a concept for the park. You're looking here back at Lakeland, the lake that's on your lower right-hand portion is the Lake Bonnet. And in our 2.5 years of discovery, very early on, we determined, David and I got in a John boat with PVC pipe, marked 1-foot marks, and went out and found out how deep that lake was. What we found, there's very little water sitting on a lot of suspended solids in that lake. Further studies of that lake have determined it is our worst conditioned lake. And one of the major reasons is because over 600 acres of residents here are able to throw something on the ground that gets into the storm sewer and comes flushing directly through that with a 50 feet elevation change directly to the lake. What's really scary, as you learn and we've traveled this road, is there's nothing between here and Tampa Bay to remove those plastics or those solids or that poor water quality that's entering Tampa Bay. There are no formal structures reducing that. So part of our original concept has been shifted and mediated in order to accommodate and make the land sustainable. This is an overview of the entire park. There are basically 4 primary elements we're going to talk to. We acquired 1,000 feet of frontage on George Jenkins Boulevard. This neighborhood that I'm pointing to, and I'm sorry for those of you looking at the other screen, but this neighborhood, Crescent Heights neighborhood, primarily the residents that live in that neighborhood are descendants of railroad employees. A former mayor came to an event here that Cynthia Heffy brought a group looking at arts potential for the park, and who drove into the neighborhood and said, this gentleman, well, it's Joel's brother, was mayor like 50 years ago. And he described, he described that neighborhood at that time as being the #1 crime area in his watch when he was mayor. And he had driven into that neighborhood and he saw houses being painted, he saw clean yards, he saw a fresh new neighborhood with a lot of retired school teachers and the community members, a quality neighborhood, and he felt compelled to say something about it. The reality is that 2.5 years ago, it was still among our highest crime areas. We removed 37.5 tons of debris out of the neighborhood, out of the yards, out of the roadways, out of the public right-of-ways. We trimmed trees and tore down weeds, but more importantly, what we've done is change lives for people in the neighborhood. Our goal is to change lives in the Northwest community. Connectivity, exercise, and integration of that community into our larger community will give these people that step up they're looking for. On this site, master plan, we're going to drive in our new 4-lane road that becomes a 2-lane. All vehicles in the park are retained on the outside of the park. There will be no cars inside the boundaries. Once you leave the parking lot, you enter the park, and vehicles will all be parking on the outside perimeter. So in this new park, there is a large yellow path that is called our connector that travels through the park. It's about 2 miles long. It's about 23 feet wide. It has bicycle, pedestrian walkways. It'll have tram. It's a safe zone to exercise daily. It's over 2 miles long. It takes you and it connects you with our 4 major centers. The first of which is the Welcome Center. As you come in the road, the Heritage Gardens, which will pay tribute to that history of agriculture and rail and so forth, is also home to our first restaurant that you'll come to in the park. This park, to be sustainable, is going to have revenue. People in a park, to be sustainable, need food. So our first restaurant opportunity, Welcome Center, the Education Center for the Lakeland History piece will all be here and be surrounded by this Heritage Park Garden where the sculptor and the plants are intended to help convey that history. You move to the center portion of the park, to the second major element, and we have the long green. We're looking here back northwest at what is a anchor building. It's going to be the new home for the Explorations 5 Children's Museum. They have chosen to be a partner in moving, and they're going to create a world-class children's museum with 40,000 square feet, exhibit space, and programming that takes care of our future for development for our children. Have another 7,000 outdoors. And also shown in this picture, you'll see a large lawn. This green lawn is when David and I went into this design process on Saturdays on napkins, and we gave the designers a concept that has come back with public input and with Sasaki's influence quite different. This great lawn is this place that's usable all week. Of course, the circulator circulates it around it, and you can throw the frisbee, but it is our special event space that will be wonderful for outdoor art shows, for classic car shows, for all kinds of special cultural events will occur on that, and it sits neatly between two 45-foot hills. And it can be programmed. Those hills are programmable on either side for an amphitheater for 500 or 600, whether the sun's in the north or the south, to give you a choice which way the wind's blowing. But the entire area for stadium seating or for festival seating will accommodate 6,000 or 7,000 people for that once or twice a year, really big event that's going to occur on site. And as we move on to the northern boundary of the park, this was not formerly railroad property. This property was assimilated during the attempts to sale this property earlier on. This property was groveland. It has a much more gentle slope to it, and it is the ideal place for our botanical gardens and the other element, one of the other major elements that we were asked for, and that's a special events venue. This special events venue is what we kept hearing repeatedly: you can't get the Magnolia building and it's not quite big enough. Well, the Magnolia building is a wonderful facility that you got to book a year out. There's a lot of demand for it. It's not quite big enough, it'll hold 200. So this building that will hold 350 will be sitting in the garden. It will accommodate that larger wedding, that larger business party and event. And it's surrounded, or directly to its west, you'll have 5 gardens, interpretive gardens. Those 5 gardens will be built based on the 5 senses. You'll have a garden where taste is appropriate, where smell is appropriate, where sound is appropriate, as conveyed to you through the plantings in that space. Below the gardens are those 3 blue lines that you see on your brochures. Those 3 areas are where the water is being captured that's coming from offsite. That's not an effort to create meadows and control the influence of our own remediation efforts on site, but those are to capture this off-site water, to filter that water and clean it and purify it before it is carried on down to the lake. Here you are in the gardens, looking back toward the special event building. The circulator, once again, is your primary way to get here. Unless you're coming to that destination, then you come by car to the parking garage on the other side. And here you are in the wetland meadows that are not going to be a retention pond. They're going to be a flowering opportunity. They're going to be some of the people we're working with quite effectively are students at All Saints Academy and their learning labs, who are coming up with ways to, quote, make that a pleasant and meaningful experience. And they've come up with wonderful ways to make flowering, floating flowering hydroponics on these waterways dance. Incredible. This is an ecological jewel hidden among all this damage that's been done. It's an incredible piece of property full of surprises. This view shows the intent for us at the lake front to dredge out about 6 acres of existing wetlands. That 6-acre dredging will enable us to create, restore the existing natural spring that occurs on property. Once again, one of those wonderful surprises as we really began to investigate and evaluate the property. A beautiful, clear crystal spring that is 72 degrees coming out of the ground. It is currently co-mingled with the thousands of gallons of volume water that have created this incredible gorge and passage through the property. We're going to stabilize that by removing that water, treating that water, stabilizing this area will allow an incredible view, just like this Bonnet Springs Valley view here, where we'll cross that gorge, leave it in place, stabilized, but what an incredible zone that's going to be for an orchid garden. So that one of these side trails that this will be, will give you that opportunity for discovery, and you'll come this week and you'll see some different blooming than you saw the previous week. One of my very favorite places on property is where that spring comes out into the dredged area is the Nature Center. It's not only important to clean this property up to us, but that the future generations understand what's going on and take responsibility for their environment. The Nature Center is comprised of 3 buildings. It's one function that's been split into 3 buildings, so it'll sit likely on the land at the edge of the wetlands on stilts, connected. This little tiki village has 3 functions. One, the first building that next to the water will be a boathouse. We'll rent paddle boats and canoes, programming and so forth for Boy Scout groups and organizations as another one of those sustainable revenue sources. The middle building is a classroom for 60 kids or adults, but that Nature Center focused classroom. And the first building is intended to be an aquarium and an interpretive area that tells the whole story of water, and it's important to us now and our future generations, and talk about the program that has occurred to clean this water. Looking back from one of the boats back at the Nature Center, you can see that this opportunity that's going to exist at this is within 11 or 12-minute walk of downtown is going to be an incredible experience. Connectivity throughout the park, concerns for how the park develops and so forth, but one of the real draws and loves, 25 years ago, David and I both fell in love with a tree, and we dedicated that tree to the city, or David had that done, and there's a grandfather oak in the property, and we've designated this area near the oak to allow such things as a canopy walk, so that you can walk through that area at 2 levels. As the circulator passes below, there will also be a canopy walk that gives children a 1,200-foot experience of walking with the birds. You will be able to take one of the side paths off and connect with the Kiwanis Treehouse in that location, which will be a building for 30 kids to have a birthday party. Once again, an incredible space, but that 200-year-old tree still stands today. Minutes after I woke up last year, about this time when Irma passed through, it was to go see if that tree survived, and she stood strong with many 36-inch oaks around her falling. How does it happen? It happens through private donations, grants. There are incredible opportunities. We're already involved. We're Brownsfield. We're in an economic zone. There are a lot of reasons and opportunities for us to advance the grants. Sponsorships, there'll be naming rights, there'll be opportunities for direct sponsorships. We are in the Florida tile development business, but only temporarily. Our goal is not to develop that property, but it's to clean, remediate the site, remove all the arsenics that are there, create a trail on that site along the railroad track, 1,600 feet, with a 12-foot trail that connects the park to downtown. The rest of the park will be sold, 100% of the proceeds going to the park. Capital campaign, which you'll hear more about once we get it organized in the next few months, and then, of course, revenue from the park amenities as we're developing that program. But recognize that we're in this endeavor for several reasons, but we recognize very early on that this is a huge endeavor. The project that you're looking at in terms of hard costs is $80 million. It's a lot of money. We've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of partners working on it. It's certainly much more than David and I, who have gotten us through this 2.5 years. But we're at that point where we're coming to you now, the community, and saying, look at this plan and figure out how you can get involved and help us. And hopefully the brochure will give you the information to help get back to us. David and I both will stand for questions. I timed that just right. I left you 5 minutes in. Questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any sense of a time frame, a timeline?
The time frame, excellent question. Each question will be something else I didn't cover because I tried to run through this. But the December of 2020, we plan to open that plant. It has been our goal for the last 2.5 years. We set that advanced goal for ourselves because the primary leadership involved in Wind Zone, Barney, David, and we're old. We don't have a lot of years left to make this happen. And so we set some very ambitious goals. What's incredible is that we're not in this by ourselves. We're in the house of God here. God has had his hand on this project from day one. It is incredible. The hurdles that just fall out of the way that could be 1 year delays and 2 years delays. It's scary to stand here and commit to that, but we still feel very confident that by the end of December of 2020, we're going to have a grand opening in that park. We're going to have an incredible fireworks show down on Lake Bonnet, and you all want to be part of that. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
How do you clean Lake Bonnet?
Lake Bonnet, it's a great question, Phil. Phil's asking, how do you clean Lake Bonnet? What happens in Lake Bonnet is that before David and I, as we were discovering and doing we also met with a lot of state agencies, including Swift Mud. Swift Mud, we show them the park, we're trying to capture these points of source that are polluting the lake and the environment and the bay, and that is our major goal, is one of our major goals. And they're more than excited about and offered to us that they have programs that would pay for 50% of the dredging of that lake, if that is the necessary element. You're in government, there is a strict requirement that you start with a complete analysis. We went to the city. The city has commissioned and currently due in September is that initial analysis that would qualify them to make an application to SwiftMud, who would in fact pay half of that. And so the dredging process is very interesting in that just dredging this debris, this material, these solids, they won't pay for that unless you are fixing the source, or it'll just reoccur. Number two is that's a lot of sand and dirt. Those of you familiar with the Lake Hollingsworth dredging know that acres and acres of sand were pumped down to Highland City. Guess what? We've got 180 acres that can absorb an awful lot of that material as it's dried and so forth within this project. So it's another one of those incredible windows that opened up that we hope continues on track. But the city and commitment for their portion is the next step to determine whether that lake portion really gets clean. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask a bit. And I realized it is close to some high-fi areas. When you first opened the park, have you been working with the community at all to kind of provide security while that neighborhood was transitioning?
When we bought the property, okay, when we bought the property, the ladies, there are many ladies, single ladies that live in that neighborhood. They don't think there is a security problem anymore. It's gone. And what existed there. When we bought the property, there were about 30 homeless camps and 50 people living on property. Those people have been lifted up, helped up, or have left the area. The neighborhood has already changed, but when you get traffic and put people and security in there, there will be a full operational security thing, but that's not where security comes from. Security comes from the right people having the opportunity to do the right thing. And the activity levels in this park, this is going to be a wonderful place to be. I assure you. I have one more. Yeah.
I love the sensory garden, 5 senses like you did, love that. I'm curious if there's an intentionality about other ADA components.
ADA components. We're into include. You guys heard me, the older people here heard me preach inclusive play. A long time ago when we came to you and let's build common ground, and we did as a group. Thank you. This park is being looked at the same way, although from Kathleen Road to the lake, there's 50 feet of elevation change. 50 feet along the strip that we are designing and recontouring the land. We're adding another 40-foot element to that. The highest points in this of activity and equipment in this park will be accessible to everyone, or we won't build it. So yeah. Yeah, everything.